Поэтому это путь в никуда.
Therefore, it's a dead-end path if just meeting with the current head of the administration, so to speak, gently. It's possible. I've never refused this if the meeting is well prepared and will lead to any possible positive results. By the way, Donald asked me if it was possible to have such a meeting. I said, yes, it's possible. After all, if Zelensky is ready, let him come to Moscow, such a meeting will happen.
Если Зеленский готов, пусть приезжает в Москву. Такая встреча. Кто считает, что каждая страна имеет право выбирать.
I agree with those who believe that every country has the right to choose for itself a system to ensure its security. This applies to all countries, including Ukraine. But it also means that the security of one country cannot be ensured at the expense of the security of another country, in this case, the Russian Federation. We have always objected to Ukraine being a member of this North Atlantic bloc, but have never questioned its right to engage in its economic and business activities as it desires. This also concerns EU membership. Security guarantees are natural. I often talk about this. We assume that any country must have these guarantees, a security system, including Ukraine. But this is not related to any exchanges, especially territorial exchanges. Honestly, we are fighting not so much for territories, but for human rights and the rights of people living in these territories, to speak in their own language, to live within their culture and traditions passed down from previous generations, from their fathers, grandfathers, and so on. That's primarily what it's about. And if these people, through electoral democratic procedures, including referendums, have expressed a desire to be part of the Russian Federation, this opinion must be respected. This is democracy. I want to remind those who forget about it. Moreover, this fully complies with international law. I also want to remind about the first articles of the United Nations Charter, where the right of nations to self-determination is directly stated. But we do not link territories directly with security guarantees. Of course, these are related topics, but we do not directly connect them. And this issue was not raised in this way during the discussion in Ankara. As for possible meetings with Mr. Zelensky, I have already said this. In general, I have never ruled out the possibility of such a meeting. Is there any sense in these meetings? Let's see. According to the Constitution of Ukraine, some may agree with it, some may not. You just need to read the text carefully. There are no provisions for the extension of the powers of the President of Ukraine in the Constitution of Ukraine. None at all. You get elected for 5 years pass, that's it, your powers end. There is a provision stating that elections are not held during martial law. This is true. But it does not mean that the President's powers are extended. It means that his powers expire, and his rights are transferred to the Speaker of the Rada, including his authority as the Supreme Commander. What should the current authorities do then if they want to be legitimate and take a full part in the regulation processes? They should hold elections. That is, not elections, first and foremost, they should hold a referendum in accordance with the Ukrainian constitution. Any territorial issues are resolved only through a referendum as far as I remember. But a referendum cannot be held under martial law. This is also a constitutional provision of the Constitution itself. So, in order to hold a referendum, martial law needs to be lifted. But as soon as this is done, elections need to be held. And this process goes on endlessly. The results of the elections are unclear, but whatever the result, a corresponding conclusion from the Constitutional Court must be obtained afterward. This is written in the primary law. And how to get a conclusion from the Constitutional Court if, after the authorities demanded the Constitutional Court of Ukraine to confirm the extension of the President's powers, and it essentially refused to do so. Do you know what they did in Ukraine? It's funny but a fact. The security stopped allowing the chairman of the Constitutional Court to his workplace. That's it. The show ended there. But not entirely, because he, as far as I know, I don't know where he is now, but for a while he went abroad. But in recent years, the powers of some members of the Constitutional Court have expired. It doesn't have a quorum to make decisions. Therefore, it's a dead-end path if just meeting with the current head of the administration, so to speak, gently. It's possible. I've never refused this if the meeting is well prepared and will lead to any possible positive results. By the way, Donald asked me if it was possible to have such a meeting. I said, yes, it's possible. After all, if Zelensky is ready, let him come to Moscow, such a meeting will happen.
Я сказал, да, это возможно. В конце концов, если Зеленский готов, пусть приезжает в Москву, такая встреча состоится. Мы еще в 2022 году предлагали украинским властям
Back in 2022, we urged Ukrainian authorities to respect the choices of people living in southeastern Ukraine, withdraw their troops from there, and end the conflict immediately. I must say this proposal wasn't entirely rejected at first. However, after the insistent urging of our Western European colleagues, withdrew troops from Kiev, the situation changed rapidly. We were then told, almost verbatim, "Now we will fight until either you twist our heads off or we twist yours off." I don't recall if I've ever stated this publicly, but it sounded like that. Nevertheless, it seems to me that if common sense prevails, it will be possible to agree on acceptable terms for ending this conflict. Moreover, we observe the stance of the current U.S. administration under President Trump's leadership. We see not just their statements, but a genuine desire to find a solution. It seems to me there is a certain light at the end of the tunnel. We shall see how the situation develops. If not, we will have to achieve all the goals set before us through military means.